In the Wild West world of podcasting, there is one podcast that is authentic and genuine and continues to stand tall in its originality. Based on a passion for his guests, their work, and his love of podcasting, Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic Podcast get amazing, diverse, unique guests found nowhere else. They include Hall of Fame athletes, Academy Award winners, Golden Globe winners, Super Bowl champions, Emmy winners, award-winning authors, award-winning film score composers, directors, trailblazers, pioneers, and inventors. The variety and quality are endless. There is something for everyone. Derek Thomas is the hero you deserve. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector. Welcome to Monday Morning Critic Podcast. Here is Derek Thomas.
So, it was a year ago today that I met Laura. I thought she was my waitress, and took her 3 weeks to tell me that she actually owned the place. You are full of surprises. You are my beautiful mystery girl. And today, I have a surprise for you.
He plays piano?
No. Roy? No.
You know how I said I was taking boxing lessons? Actually, I was doing this. So, I hope that you like it.
You got this, Roy.
She's got a way about her. Don't know what it is, but I know that I can't live without her. She's got a way.
You have found Monday Morning Critic Podcast. This is episode 232. Today's guest is actor David Denman. Some of David's filmography includes Greenland, the immensely underrated Brightburn and Logan Lucky, 13 Hours, Power Rangers, The Gift. He plays the iconic Roy Anderson in The Office. He is one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time in Big Fish. You can currently find him on HBO Sundays at 10 p.m. in the absolutely smash hit Mayor of Easttown, a show that I am hook, line, and sinker all in on. We just finished episode 4, and I got to say, I had this debate, and I bring it up to David in the interview. I'm still trying to figure out what's better, right? Is it better like Stranger Things releases a show all at once, or like The Haunting of Hill House I absolutely love, where they release all episodes at once? Or is it better to get it weekly, right? I feel like if you get episodes weekly, I mean, this is one of those shows that we make sure we watch it on Sunday night, 10 p.m. We are right there. Versus, because I feel like the weekly drop for an episodic show, you have a chance to process it during the week, what went on, the characters, you're thinking about it. Where when you binge watch one show after the next, where you finish a series like in a day or two, I feel like some of the details might get lost, some of the quality might get lost because you're in a race to kind of get it done. That like hunger to kind of find out what's next, what's happening next. So it's a really interesting take. I think it works really well for Mayor of Easttown to have it drop weekly. We make sure, again, to not miss this. We're at our TV Sunday, 10 p.m. HBO. I cannot get enough of this show. I'm pretty good with predicting shows, what's happening, what could happen, what will happen. This one has got me thoroughly confused. I still think I might be onto something, but who knows? Just reflecting here quickly on some of David's filmography, the first of which is a movie called Brightburn, and it really begs the question, we know Superman to be a man of good, a man of peace, a man that values humanity, a man that is a force of good. But then this movie really does a wonderful job begging the question, what happens if Superman's the opposite of all those things, right? The show The Boys, it's 2 seasons on Amazon Prime, kind of does that. Brightburn was here before that, so it's an interesting concept, right? Brightburn, I saw opening weekend. I was just blown away by this. A movie doesn't have to be in that DC, a superhero movie doesn't have to be in that DC Marvel realm to be appreciated. There's 2 phenomenal movies, not in either of those, DC or Marvel. Brightburn for sure, and we've talked Hancock before with Will Smith and Charlize Theron. So there's 2 fantastic. If you're a superhero buff, those are 2 fantastic movies. I would even say Brightburn's. It is horror, but it is done so well. A James Gunn project. David is so good in that. He's so good in 13 Hours. And the one problem I run into when I have a wonderful guest like David, his filmography is so lengthy and so deep, and he's so kind enough to give me almost an hour of his time. There's only so many questions you can ask in a given time period, right? Especially with an actor this established, this accomplished, this talented. So I really have to kind of break it down. I have to kind of go to what I look at is means the most to me. And, you know, Greenland, we saw recently, great movie. Logan Lucky is really underrated. It was on Amazon Prime. It is so well done. A fun movie. Adam Driver's in it. Great movie. Power Rangers, The Gift. Again, the clip coming in was Roy Anderson in The Office, another iconic character, and Big Fish. I mean, Tim Burton. I think it's Tim Burton's best. But David and I break a few of these movies down in our interview. We talk about Dave's most recent work, Mayor of Easttown, M-A-R-E of Easttown, on HBO, Sunday nights, 10 p.m. Cannot stop raving about this show. So in my Rolodex of shows, right, at any one time I have 10, 15, maybe even more that I watch continuously, right? I'm going to say this easily highlights the bunch. It is so well done. If my recommendation means anything, give this show a chance. I promise you it will not let you down, and I will not let you down. Just another great guest. I can't thank David enough. He was just such a pleasure to deal with on and off air. And it's not that I ever have difficult guests, but I just have an appreciation when somebody is as good as advertised. And I'm very grateful for guests like David, who don't have to give me any time and are so kind to give me almost 60 minutes. I mean, just a quality human being. And if you want to get a hold of me on Facebook, it is Monday Morning Critic Podcast. On Instagram, it's Monday Morning Critic Podcast. Please subscribe at Apple Podcasts. My website is mmcpodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening. A lot of great shows coming your way. Please welcome the absolutely wonderful David Denman. David Denman is an absolutely wonderful actor whose filmography includes The Office, Brightburn, 13 Hours, and the absolutely fabulous Mayor of Easttown, currently on HBO. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
David, any truth to the rumor all great people are born in 1973?
For us, yeah.
It's just a fact. So I was, yeah, I was looking at just researching your life. I had no idea you are married to Mercedes Mason, who's an absolutely wonderful actor. Yeah. She was so good as Ophelia on Fear of the Walking Dead. So I just had to get that out there.
Yeah, she's pretty damn great. I'm a lucky dude.
Yeah. Do you get, Dave, since you're both actors, do you run lines with each other a lot? Is that something that happens a lot at your home?
Yeah, we run lines together. It's most of the stuff is really putting ourselves on tape nowadays. So we have to do a lot of auditions, and that's a when you talk about like the job, like that's the job, is trying to get the next gig. And so we have to do that a lot with each other. And sometimes it's frustrating because, your second worst critic is probably your spouse. So you're like, oh, I thought that was pretty good. And they're like, really? You sure you don't want to try again? And like, oh gosh. So, that's the trickiest part of navigating that, but we're, big supporters of each other. So it's usually always for the best, trying to get, as we like to refer to it as the team, and, get the team a job and figure out, we're not competing against each other, which is nice.
Right.
She doesn't look anything like me, and I would lose if I had to compete against her. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, I'm going to bounce around a little bit here. Talk to me about Fountain Valley High School.
Fountain Valley. I bounced around when I was a kid. I went to 8 different schools growing up, and then my parents were divorced and moved around quite a bit. And then my mom always was very adamant that my brother and I would go to one high school, and we would build those relationships and stuff. And so I ended up at Fountain Valley, and I always wanted to be an actor, but I got really lucky. I ran into this woman named Patty Dublé, now DeLeon, and she was right out of college, and she had a lot of great energy, and I had a lot of learning disabilities as a kid, and she was the first teacher to like really challenge me, and basically because of all of these special ed classes I was in, when I went to the school there, they went over to all of my teachers and they were like, hey, David has some comprehension issues and lots of different things. And so you need to give him some extra time with his tests and give them to us, and then we can go over them and help him through it. And she went, what is this? And she took me into her office and she goes, hey, they came in here and told me that you need special time. I'm not giving you any of that. I expect the same out of you that I do anybody else. And I don't understand what any of this is. It doesn't make any sense to me. You're more than capable of doing all of this. And it was like huge. It was like changed my life because, I wasn't, I was on an equal playing field with everybody else. And so it made me actually work like 10 times harder. And I wanted it so bad. I wanted to be an actor. So it was huge. And she also, we would have these award shows at the end of the year, and she made this award called Outstanding Professionalism and Commitment to Theater. And she kind of made that like more important than like the Best Actor award. And if you can believe it, in a high school, but she did, and I got that like my sophomore year of high school, and it just defined how I was going to be. It's kind of crazy. I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, yeah, I can work harder than anyone else. There's going to be more talented people who are going to be better looking and whatnot, but no one can work as hard as I can. I can always beat somebody at that. And so that's what I did. I hustled and worked really hard at like, getting monologues together and to go to college and yeah, it was huge. And I was also really lucky that I had like the writer-director, Craig Brewer, was a classmate of mine. He was 2 years older than I was, and he was a phenom in high school. Like he wrote and directed plays and starred in them. And like, he was like the star of the program. And he took a liking to me, and, we became lifelong friends. And it's crazy how, there's another guy too that went there as well. This guy, Omar Metwally, who got nominated for a Tony, and he works all the time. He's a terrific actor. And, he was a year below me, and we all went in this bubble while we were there. And she was so, trying to think of the right word. She manifested this department where we would put on our own productions and we would produce them ourselves. And so I would be out raising money, going to all the local businesses, asking for them to, buy an ad in our program so we could raise $5,000 to rent costumes from, the costume shop in Hollywood to do Amadeus. And, like, we worked our butts off, but she empowered us to do that. And it was great. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and granted, it had to be hard for you, even though her shot of confidence in you is huge. David, that's difficult to work through learning disabilities. That had to be tough for you. That had to be really tough for you. So how do you, not to mention at this time of your life, you're kind of moving around a lot. How tough was that as well? Moving around 8 different places. Did that tax you as a kid a little bit?
100%. I mean, that was, I would say, more than anything, that created the learning disabilities, because my mother had learning disabilities, my brother had learning disabilities, and when my parents split, my dad wasn't really, he saw me all the time, but he wasn't aware of what I was going through at school. Like I would see him a couple of times during the week and on the weekends, but frankly, I was like, someone he would go play with. We didn't sit down and do homework.
Right.
Like we would go to the park and throw the ball, and he didn't want to deal with that. He wanted to enjoy his kid. And so he missed it. And my mom didn't have the ability to see it. So everyone missed it. And no one like went, man, he's having a hard time reading and we need to get a tutor or something. Like that just did not happen. And so, yeah, the moving around was a big, big part of it, which is, you know, one of the things my wife, she moved around a lot as a kid too. And it's one of the things that we try so desperately to, that, you know, with our kids, that we're going to try to keep them in, you know, on a track with one school, and if we can, you know, instead of bouncing around. But, you know, we're both actors, and the reality is we got to keep our family together. Otherwise, then what's the point? So, you know, when we get a gig, you know, in Toronto or New York or Atlanta or wherever, you know, like if it's a long enough gig, then we either fly back and forth every second we have off, or we get everybody and we move. We haven't had that yet because my son's 3 and I got another one coming. So, you know, we have a lot of big, ambitious plans as to what we're going to do for our kids and their education. But we both, you know I specifically more than she did. She was, you know, a little genius. She didn't really have a problem picking up and moving from her education, but I did. And so it's important to me that we're able to focus on that. I mean, you know, the irony of it all is I got to high school and I remember seeing Henry V with Kenneth Branagh, and I was like, wow, I don't know what he's doing, but I want to do that someday. And that sparked, you know, this, you know, inspection of the language of Shakespeare, and started reading things. If you would have asked my teachers, like, back then, that I would ever read Shakespeare and that I would understand it and that I would then go on to perform it, they would all say that's never going to happen. And sure enough, like I did, and you know, that finding that way in, you know, the thing that's still to this day, when I read novels, I get so tired, and I have a hard time keeping my train of thought. But for whatever reason, when I would read plays, they just came alive to me. And like, I don't know what it would, you know, imagining acting out all the characters and filling in all the blanks and whatnot. I don't know if that just worked better for my brain, but it's for sure. I mean, I read so many scripts now. But I just, you know, I don't have it's not the same. When I read a novel, I love them, but it takes a lot more work for me.
And so much so you find your way to Juilliard, which is amazing. You persevere in that regard. Let me ask you, do you think you could have been, I mean, we talk about some influences up to this point in your life. Do you think you could have been where you are today without Juilliard? No way. I mean, you know, it's a great school. I had lots of amazing instructors while I was there, and it was incredibly challenging. And there's a lot of, you know, knocks on the place because it is so challenging. But if you take even everything I learned from there away, just getting into that place was this enormous boost to your confidence. And then getting to play with like the top % of the kids that all tried to get in, you know, a lot of those people are, you know, should be some of the more talented kids your age, and working with them and learning from them, like just that experience alone, you know, just really, I don't even know how to describe it other than like, I remember getting out of school, going onto the set of ER, which was my first job, and thinking, oh, this is easy. Like, not that it's easy, but just like, I know how to stay focused for 12 hours a day because I just did it for the last 4 years, you know, where that's all you're doing, you know, morning, noon, and night. And like, so, you know, I did learn an enormous amount of tools, and they were the first to say, look, these are just tools for you to use when things aren't working. Like when you have all your instincts, use them. That's what you're supposed to do. But like when you get a script and you go, oh man, I don't know what to do with this. Here's a bag
of tools that you can use to mine that, and come up with more interesting choices. And so much of Juilliard is training you for the theater, that like you do voice and speech and movement and physicality, and like not a lot of that stuff translates onto camera, but it does. I mean, like currently I'm doing Mayor of Easttown, and we had to do this, Delco accent that if I hadn't had the training to work on the accent with, my speech teachers, I wouldn't have been able to pick that up and work on that. So it all did help, and it definitely, I truly believe I would not be where I am today. I mean, I probably would have been somewhere. I just don't know where.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch upon the Delco accent. It's funny that it's funny that you bring that up. So the one thing I want to talk about is, for those listening, you were Roy in The Office, and I just find it because Roy is a unique guy. It's funny that the actor who played him is a Juilliard Shakespearean trained actor. I just find that phenomenal. Like, it's just to think, and like you said, it's those little things you pick up that add to that part, right? It's such a great testament to education and learning, and I don't know. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. Well, Roy was always. I went to high school with a bunch of knuckleheads, and he was sort of my getting back at all of them, making fun of them. To be quite honest. That's what my inspiration was for that guy, because he's a meathead. And, the nice thing is, with that show, there's so much like that you're allowed to do, like in a talking head, those interviews. And I only did I think my character does it like once or twice. But between season 2 and 3, Greg Daniels, who's was the creator of the U.S. version, he came to me and he's like, "Look, I want to make Roy more of a rival." And I was like, "I don't know how you're going to do that." And he goes, "Well, I know you can do it. We have to, write to it and find a way." But I said, "Well, my opinion, for what it's worth, is the only way you're going to have a shot is if he acknowledges that he's messed up and, tries to win her back, and because I don't know how else we've dug him in the corner of just being such a knucklehead." And he goes, "That's exactly what we're going to do. And the nice thing is we have that ability for you to have a monologue with the audience and just say, 'Yeah, I messed up and I got to win her back.'" And sure enough, that's what they did. And it was like, boom, all of a sudden we're like, "Oh, wait, what?" Now we're in on this journey. And, so yeah, that was a fun, that was really fun to work on, because so often on TV shows and they want you to be the same thing every week. And it's really, really hard to try to change that over time, have an arc, because especially with a sitcom, people watch it, we want to walk in and we want to see everybody be the same, do their thing and walk away. And that was really cool that over 3 seasons, we got to see a little bit of a journey with that guy. And, so I'm grateful for that experience. And, everyone on it was amazing and lovely. And, I still to this day, I'm amazed that it's as popular as it is. I mean, I always loved it and thought it would be great, but to have it, get on Netflix and get the legs that it got. I mean, it's more popular now than it ever was when we were on the air on NBC. But
that's the great thing about it. It's the fact that high school kids are talking about it. That's the idea that this show really has some legs to it. So I want to touch upon a few things in your filmography, but before I do that, I guess my next question is more of a fan question. I guess somewhat of an actor's question. Do you prefer all episodes drop at once or weekly? In other words, sometimes Netflix will say, "Okay, here's all 12 episodes in the series. Watch them when you can." Or do you like the idea of Mayor of Easttown is one, obviously one at a time. The first 2 came out, I think, right away. Then it was one at a time. How do you prefer it?
Well, I think it also, that's a good question. I think it's, we only just recently started having these binge shows. I think the first time I binged a show was Stranger Things, maybe.
Okay.
And I loved that, man. I was like, oh, this is so amazing. And it was like, I ate that up and consumed that in a day and a half. I mean, like, I couldn't get enough of it. But I'm loving a little old school, you know, drop a new episode each week that HBO's doing. And they only did the first one the first week and then the next one the next week. So it's 7 weeks. And I love it because it makes you like have appointment TV, which I haven't had in forever. You know, like it's like I look forward to something now. Oh, guess what? There's going to be a new episode of a show I like. You know, that I haven't had that experience. It's like I feel like so inundated with so much content. You go on, and I'm scrolling through Netflix, being like, oh no, there's a new show every week, but like nothing that I'm, you know, I get terribly invested in, and so I feel like. I guess to answer your long-winded question, I like the old school, let's wait for next week and, you know, get people excited to tune in and see what's up. But
yeah, and I can't wait to get to Mayor of Easttown because there's one thing I want to add to your point that supports it is that it does give you time to process it and think about the show where, you know, you brought up Stranger Things. It's like you have no time to process. It's like one is done. You're hopping right into the other and you know, and some stuff could get lost there. So before I get into I want to talk a little bit about Brightburn. But before I get into that, I have to say, can I just tell you how special of a movie Big Fish is? Like, I don't know how many interviews I've ever asked you about this. This movie, every time I watch it, I think about my father. I mean, I have to watch this movie alone, David, because I'll be in a puddle of tears. I can't make it through this movie. Underrated entry into your filmography that I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
Special
I love
movie.
that movie too. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, all I can say is I agree with you. I love that book, and I really love the movie. It was, and I mean, I loved working with everybody on that. Tim Burton was so much fun, and I was such a huge fan of his before I got the gig, and then I just. You know, as an actor, especially in film, you don't really get to see audiences laughing or the reaction to it because, you know, you're not on stage. So I remember doing, you know, I only have a few scenes in that, but doing my first scene with Tim, I think it was like us in the field, me beating up Ewan McGregor and just watching Tim Burton just laughing, cackling behind the monitor. Like, was just, I'll never forget that. It was so much fun because he was so excited and I know like he was so excited when I got there because it was such a small role that the studio was trying to get him to hire someone locally and he saw a bunch of people and, you know, he just didn't have anyone. He wanted me to do it. And so when he was able to get me and, you know, we shot in Alabama, and he was so excited, so grateful that I was there, and you know, it just was really fun. It's fun to be on the receiving end of that joy. You know,
yeah,
it's a full movie.
I think it's his best work. Never mind Danny Elfman's phenomenal score. I had the author on the show, Daniel Wallace, and I'm all in on that. I'm all in on that movie. It's one of those movies I think I almost picture like when your son gets older, David, that you would sit and watch. It's the ultimate father and son. I love it.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about it. Maybe the not so father and son movie that I absolutely loved was Brightburn. How this movie isn't talked about. I mean, this is one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen. It is so well done. I rewatched it again knowing I was going to speak to you. I got to say, I cannot say enough good things about this movie, and everyone I recommend this movie to absolutely loves it. And it does answer that question, you know, because this is exactly what would happen. And I know there's other things involved where, you know, he's not from this planet, but this is exactly how it would play out if superheroes existed. This is exactly, it wouldn't be the, you know, saving the cat out of the tree. It would be this, right?
I mean, I don't know. That is the fundamental question, right? Is he inherently evil, or did we have something to do with that? And if he left to his own teenage devices, would he do all these horrible things that he ends up doing? I mean, you know, the initial script that we had, it was a lot more of like a thriller of the parents, like, is he or isn't he? And then as it developed, James was like, no, man, anyone who comes to see this movie is going to know what they're seeing. Let's stop with this trying to pretend like, you know, we don't know. Is he, you know, and so then like it became more fun of like, how evil can we make him and how far can it go? And, you know, and so I love that movie. And I loved working with Elizabeth Banks on that and everybody, the director, David Yavar, we call him Yarvo, Yavarsky. He's terrific. And, you know, yeah, I got that, the funny thing about that, when you say father and son, I literally got that audition while I was in the hospital with my son.
Wow.
And they're like, hey, I know this is probably the last thing you want to do right now, but they're wondering if you might come in. They're just looking at a select small group of folks, and can you come in on Thursday? I'm like, I just slept at the hospital, guys. Like, let me read it, and I'll get back to you. And then I read it, and I was like, honey, I have to go to an audition. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I got to go to an audition. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the
babies bring good luck.
Yes, and the two people that love this child the most are the ones that pay the most violent price. My gosh, like I don't think James could have created a bigger exclamation point in their deaths. I thought that was, you know, and I thought Jackson Dunn was absolutely fantastic, as were you and Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, he's terrific.
But dad always knows. The dad, you always knew something was a bit off, right? There's always like that bit of a question mark. This kid's just, something's off here a little bit. Even though you love him and you care for him and you nurture him, there's something that's just off here, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean there's that, like, I love, there's like a scene, I don't know, like about a third of the way or maybe 2/3 of the way in, where he's like, where he hasn't come home and we're like trying to find him, and then he comes home and he's covering something. I'm clearly like, and she's like, he's lying. I'm like, you think he's lying? What do you mean? Of course he's lying. Like, and she's like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, what are we going to do? It's too late for that. Like, we should have done something a long time ago. This is on us now. Like, he's hurting people. I just love how, like, they're just kind of clueless about it until it's so far gone, and then they get ultimately caught up in it.
Yeah, so the last thing I want to talk to you about, and thank you for this time, you're such a good dude, is the mayor of Easttown. I have to say, you talk about appointment television. I don't remember wanting to be near a show so quickly and make sure I was watching it so people wouldn't ruin it with spoilers. And I was so in anticipation of the next episode. I'm thinking maybe Breaking Bad, Sopranos, the night of, something like that.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, is this one hell of a show? I mean, people say, oh, it's a crime drama. It's so much more than that, right? It's about family and suicide and loss. Yeah. And, you know, Brad Inglesby, who wrote The Way Back, an amazing writer. You are fantastic as Frank. What a cast, top to bottom. You know, Gene Smart, Guy Pearce, Evan Peters, Kate Winslet, and I'm probably leaving a bunch of people out of here. This is done so well, and so, I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, David, but it's done so well in so many ways. I cannot express to you how much I love this show.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so lucky to be part of it, and I mean, honestly, when they reached out to me to do it, I was like, 100% I'm on board. And I just love the world that Brad created. And, you know, they sent me, I was lucky enough to be sent all the scripts because, you know, I wanted to know what exactly happened and what my character was going to be required to do, you know? And so I just love the world so much. And I trusted Brad, and I was so grateful that they, you know, asked me to do it. And I'm a huge fan of Kate Winslet. I mean, it doesn't get any better than her. I mean, she is incredible. And I loved just watching her do things on, like, you know, you talk about just like an actor making choices that you're like blown away by. I'm sitting there watching how fearless she is and playing this character. And she did this like one thing in the first episode. And we'd already been shooting for at this point over a year. And she does this thing where she's constantly eating. I don't know if you every time she walks in, she's like grabbing something to eat because she never has enough time to eat something. And she's sitting there just frustrated with everything that's going on that first day. And she grabs like a cheese cracker and then takes Cheese Whiz and spreads it on top of it and like downs it. You don't actually see her down it, but we did it. Like she must have eaten probably 20 of those, like take after take after take. I was like, I can't believe they cut before you saw her eat it. But she was, I was like, God, like where do you come up with that? Like it was not on the page, that was just like her being like, I need some, can we get some Cheese Whiz? What does the prop department have? Like, and she like put that together and I just thought it was just genius. And like she is such a layered character. There's so much going on, and it just slowly gets peeled, like an onion as it goes on. And it is a crime show, but it's like you said, it's really about the family and that dynamic. And I love the story of her and I, and this our son that we just never that. Our son's death that we just couldn't talk about and couldn't deal with, and that ultimately what put the nail in the coffin for us. And then this really, amazing conceit that Frank bought the house behind their
just
house.
gonna say that, yeah.
And like, and it was I just thought that was so funny. And we had to talk about like why he bought it. Like I said, a point came where he was like, I'm not coming into this house again. I'm not living with you another day, but I'm not leaving my family. I'm not leaving my daughter or my grandson. And so this thing, the house popped up on the market and he got a good deal and he jumped at it. And, but he's still part of their life. And he walks into the house. He's, his mother-in-law loves him. And it's just a really fun dynamic to play with, that like these people who met, in high school or right after high school and got married and had kids and then it just disintegrated, but how they continue on as a family, I just find really interesting. And it gets very complicated as the season goes on. I'm a little mad.
I was doing research, for this interview, and I read what a critic was saying about the show, and she was head over heels for it, like I was. But then she goes on to say, "In episode 5 made me gasp out loud." I'm like, "Thanks for the kind of spoiler." Like, geez, like, could you not? Like, you could stop there. You didn't have to give. She didn't say what it was, but it's like now it's in my head that something's happening in episode 5. But I have to say, there's tons of stories about how wonderful Kate Winslet's been on this set of this movie, on this show and other movies. I have to say, one thing that really got to me was seeing Aaron McMenamin's body in that stream. I don't know if it's because I just had a daughter, but it's like it broke my heart. Like this kid is so sweet. She's struggling through life, and it's like, oh my God, like it's heart wrenching, David. It's heart wrenching.
Well, it just keeps staying tuned, man. It's it's pretty gut wrenching. As the show goes on, you'll find out more and more and more.
Yeah, and I don't want to minimize the ability of the other cast, but when you have scenes with someone like Kate, can you tell that she's at one of our best actors, maybe ever? Can you tell there's, you mentioned the Cheese Whiz, but is there something that stands out with her that, I don't want to say that you haven't seen other actors because I feel like that's minimalizing somebody else's ability. I don't want to do that. But, like, is there something special in her? I guess I can equate it to sports and playing with, like, a Jordan or something like that. Can you tell as an actor that you're in some rarefied air when you have a scene with her?
I mean, it's hard to, yes and no. The thing about it is why she's so special is because there's nothing like special. Like she is so down to earth. She is so like normal and like, and so, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people and not everybody is open and welcoming as other people are, but Kate is that. You know, she immediately was like, okay, here, this is what's up. This is what's happening. Like and she's with that with everybody. She doesn't know any other way to be other than, you know, as open as she can and supportive. And so yeah, I mean, I love that. I love working with people like that. You know, and Jean Smart is like that as well. She's
awesome.
And everybody on
everybody,
this,
great cast. Yep.
Was just a really amazing cast that they put together, and all across the board. But it was you know, it was our leader. You know, she was an EP on the show as well. Kate was definitely steering the ship, and you know, I'm constantly like, you know, I don't know. I guess I've been spoiled, you know, having worked with Steve Carell, who's also one of the greats, and just so kind and so open and fearless. I mean, that's the only way for me to describe it, is that like she's not afraid to like take on the challenge. You know, it's like it's a 7-hour movie. It's an enormous like undertaking with this accent that is, God, the most challenging thing I think anyone will ever have to do. And she nails it. And, you know, she worked at it and worked at it and worked at it. And I'm sure they're still fine tuning it in post, you know, like it's not something that's an easy thing for anyone to take on. And she does it, you know, incredibly. And then, yeah, I mean, she like for her, you know, when we got together, she wanted to rehearse, not even rehearse. She just wanted to read it. Like she wanted to talk about it. We spent hours and hours and hours just talking about our family and our backstory and what happened when and where. That none of that stuff's on the page, but we as actors need to know that stuff, because that's the only way you can play the subtext and the layers of all the stuff that's going on. And, you know, not all of it's going to read. People are not going to necessarily pick all of it up, but we do. We know what's happening. Like, you know, in I think it's the second episode, you know, Kate and I are having just this talk about our grandson, and his eyes are blinking. And we know because our son had the same thing, and he ended up having all kinds of horrible mental, you know, illness and ultimately took his own life. And so we're sitting here looking at our grandson going, is this hereditary? Like, this is terrifying for us that we're going to see this again. And as much as we have had so many things tear us apart over the 20 years we've been together, like we still have that history, and we both know how horrendous it was for us as a family. And we're sitting here going, are we going to go through this again? And I'm still trying to be supportive, and she's trying to be optimistic. But you know, not all of that is on the page. But we got together as actors, and we just talked all that out and figured out timelines of at what point did this happen and did that happen, and then, you know, so that we could fill in that history. And hopefully, you know, some of that stuff comes across, and, you know, I guarantee you it won't come across if you don't talk about it and you don't fill in the blank. But at least we, you know, so we give it our best shot.
Yeah, two last things. Authenticity and being attention to detail, I feel like are a huge strong point with this show, because you mentioned the Delco accent. I mean, you know, you could hear it when you guys are speaking, you know, Oreo and Lego and overdose. Like, you guys have nailed that accent. And as somebody who lives in Massachusetts, you know, people pay close attention to that Boston accent, right? And actors catch hell for mutilating that. But I have to say that you guys are getting such high praise for nailing that Delco accent. Any truth? And you mentioned how difficult it was. Is there any truth that Kate was going in and out from the, you know, when the camera, you know, stopped shooting, she'd go to her, you know, her normal English accent. That's unbelievable to me. Like, how do you, because it's such a hard thing to learn. How does somebody gravitate in and out? I would say if I was an actor, I'd have to stay in it and not get out of it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's a lot to be said about that. And some people take that approach, when you're doing an accent that's so far out, but she, no, we'd cut and we'd talk about stuff in our own accents. And then, and sometimes we'd have to, you're going over lines, before you do it, like just not to learn the line, but like to work on that accent, and that's the hardest thing about this is that, Brad was so open to us, putting things in our own words and like, if we wanted to slightly adjust a text, he would be like, yeah. And so sometimes we'd even improv some moments, and that's where it gets scary is when you're improving in an accent that is not yours, like that I find to be the biggest challenge because then you're in uncharted waters because, I'll go home, I'll listen to tapes upon tapes of different people with the accent. And, you try to take on the characteristics as much as you can, but then you go through the text and you got to go through word by word and be like, now, is it in this word? Or is it not? And the thing about that accent is it'll be in one word and not in the other. And you're like, but it's the same sound. They're like, I know, but for whatever reason, it's not in that word, but it's in this word. And you're like, oh my God, you're killing me. So, so then imagine having to have that kind of detail and then improv. And you're like, well, I haven't done it. I've done a bunch of homework, but like not enough. Like, so that to me is where I get like, I love improving and I love, especially in a drama improving, like, it's really fun, but it's, when you're doing an accent, it's a little scary. But
yeah, and one of the great things about the show is it always leaves you like I'm pretty good with guessing things, and it leaves you on the edge. But I think I figured it out right. I think, and you can't say anything about this. I think it's the priest, but not the one that threw the bike in, because we're heading into episode 4 on Sunday. I believe it's her cousin. And I think he's also the hooded peeping Tom. You can't say anything about it. I'm just throwing that out there. What a fun show. If you guys aren't watching the show, get on it. It is the hottest show and best show on any streaming service, bar none, period, David. I can't tell you how highly I regard this show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before I let you go, anything you wanted to throw out there? You've given me so much of your time. You're such a good dude. So much fun to talk to. Anything you wanted to throw out there?
No, man. I appreciate you reaching out. And, I'm glad you're checking all this stuff out. It's great.